Exodus 22 through 24.
I say it all to later.
20 what? I'm sorry.
Lawyers of the Old Testament.
Yeah, 22 through 24. No lawyer jokes. No lawyer jokes.
We were to pray at least
So,
10 minutes every day. And I tell you, that was way too short.
So we're not,
And I
you know,
still
the
pray.
first, last month,
All day and all night too.
last week we were talking about some of the laws that we weren't sure that came from God, because they talked about slavery, and it appeared that Moses was just trying to keep the peace in the community. But today, it almost seems like the laws
We're from God.
again could have been from God.
Yeah.
I thought so too.
So
Do you think he embellished them?
it could be because we know the Pharisees did. And the Pharisees added 620 some extra laws, a whole bunch.
Sounds like our government.
So that could be, or it could be that God or Moses was inspired by God and he applied God's laws to the Israelites' everyday lives. Hard to say. But what these laws do is they focus the new Israelite nation, it focuses their attention on God. We see a good shift towards that. It protects the rights of the young nation because it protects the community, and even in a couple parts it organizes the nation. So there are a lot of different things happening in these 3 chapters. One thing we see that we didn't before, remember in, I think it was in chapter 21, when the payback was limited only to time and wages lost. There were no penalties added onto it. Here, whenever there's thievery, there's what's called a punitive element. Not only do you have to pay back 1 for 1, now we're paying back for, if you steal an ox or a sheep, you're paying back 5 cattle for the ox and 4 sheep for the sheep. So in this case, they thought that if you add a penalty to it, it'll stop you from doing it. Unfortunately, we know from current law that doesn't always hold true. Even if you make the penalty stiffer, some people that are going to commit the crime are still going to commit the crime.
My heading on that's chapter 23. It says laws of justice and mercy. So
Well, that's
that,
in 23.
social responsibility is before then, is the other one.
In 22, we go through a couple different sections.
Oh,
And in my Bible, chapter 22 is called protection of property.
yeah, that's what mine says too, okay.
So we're talking about livestock, we're talking about when people break in.
Yeah, that's interesting
That
about the
kind of stuff.
daylight. You're not charged if it's in the daylight. Is that weird? Or
Why do you think that was?
Because everybody could see it.
Everybody could see it as one thing, but what happens in the nighttime?
Bad guys are out.
Bad guys are out, and they're there for a reason. They're there for malicious reasons.
So it's
And-
premeditated.
It's premeditated, and also when it's dark, you don't really know what's going on. There could be 2 guys there, 3 guys, so you're defending your whole
Okay.
household against how many knows how many people.
Okay.
But in the sunlight, you see exactly who's there, what's going on, and the idea was you might have been able to find an alternative to killing somebody. So this is the use, what they call use of extreme force or something like that. I can't remember the term exactly.
What's blood guilt?
Oh,
Blood, I have bloodshed in mind, but blood guilt could be what they were afraid of is payback. There was what
What verse is that in?
2.
2. The defender is not guilty of bloodshed.
Pam,
Mine says blood guilt.
does you want to go sit over there where there's
If
the
it
little
happens
breeze?
after sunrise, it is incurred.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
I'll let her be.
Here, he asked if you want
Do you want to go sit over there? We'll pick your chair up and move you over there by the air. You sure? Okay.
Because it really is
She's
cool.
probably sitting next to a hot box.
It's
Thermally challenged.
I'm thermally challenged. so-
cool right here.
It is, it's cooler over there.
Because I can feel it.
I might.
It's cooler away
Do you
from
want to switch seats with Pam? I can just,
No, I'm fine.
no, sit
No,
there.
you're not fine. You're standing, you're
Pam.
sitting there fanning away.
Here.
Yeah, go.
You
We'll
can
move.
sit here, you'll still be sitting next to Ben, and you'll get chill.
And I'll just slide the camera
I
over.
need-
There
I
we
need this in the back of
go.
my chair.
There we go.
Oh,
Really? Yeah, because I have that.
We'll switch
I'm
chairs.
fine.
okay,
fine.
so it's even colder here.
If I open up, you open.
Jeanette has icicles on her glasses.
I only had to get up and move last night. It was
Yeah,
so
well,
cold over there.
We would just want you to be comfortable.
I'll sit in this chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Over here.
Okay, now move the camera back.
Yeah.
We were
Now I
surrounded by people out
Now,
there. You've got
when you
their
watch
hair
the
around.
recording,
Don't get
you're gonna get nauseous.
Where'd he go?
When Joe was small, we went, was it Christmas
Pumpkin
tree
farm.
hunting? Pumpkin farm? Mm-hmm. And I had the video camera on as I'm walking through the field.
Nauseating.
Oh, it was awful.
All you saw was his weeds or the
Yeah.
dry corn.
Whoa.
Oh my God.
Okay, so,
Okay, back to the people.
Thank you.
It's better, right?
so
Yeah.
if you can see what you're doing, you have the opportunity to change your action. Maybe you don't have to kill the person. Maybe you can just knock them out or tie them up or call for help.
Or maybe you see somebody looking at you and you change your mind.
Right.
That's
But you can't see
true.
it at night.
That's
No.
true.
Right.
True. And I noticed this is the first time in these chapters he talked about you'll go before the judges. You'll
True.
go before the judges.
True.
Because he didn't really do that before in the last one. But
Good point.
he put judges in play here. So,
And then if you steal anything, you've got to pay back double.
yeah.
So in our society, 95% of the crimes are kind of committed by 5% of the population. Is that pretty close to right?
I don't know.
From what I've heard.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Repeat offenders?
I guess it makes sense because, once you fall into that lifestyle, and if you're a felon, it's really hard to get a job.
Yeah.
And if you go back to the same neighborhood, you're with the same people, you're in the same situation, your life hasn't gotten any better, and we know the prison system doesn't rehabilitate anybody.
No.
It's kind of like practice or, getting your grad degree in
Yeah.
how to be a crook.
As if we were in a Muslim nation, they'd be without a hand
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
the first time.
So it's really, the prison system's really messed up.
Yep.
But no political commentary.
Nope, you're being
or anything
recorded.
He
like
was telling us
that.
yesterday, so it's
We'll
well.
keep the scripture. And then, so that's verses 1 through
Wait,
4.
those two things hit my head. This was probably the first part of the criminal justice system God was putting into
Oh,
play.
yeah.
And that's why, and then man got involved and it got more.
Messed up.
Yeah, and the lawyers and everybody. But if you were guilty, you just went before a judge, that would be perfect, and no one to. Well, I don't know.
It's hard to say.
But
you get
yeah.
a crooked judge,
Yeah,
There you go.
you
Yeah.
wouldn't stand a chance.
But it's always good to have the penalties written down, so it's clear, if you do
Right.
this is what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
right.
Instead of all the judges that he had appointed would be making up their own things as they went along. And so God took care of all that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And God in His wisdom. Because right now, if you go in front of a lenient judge, you'll get a lighter sentence than if you go in front of a tough judge.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
My
let's
Bible
make a
calls
deal.
it, these are the laws of restitution.
Kind of read today the Code of Hammurabi. I think
Okay.
that was, they found that about 1900s, and it existed in the Middle East
Right.
for many years. And 230 some descriptions. It was a cylinder that was fairly tall. So it had been around similar to what
wow.
God was teaching.
Yeah.
The code of what now?
Hammurabi.
Hammurabi.
There we go.
So the next verse is 5 through 17, like Pam said. These are the laws of restitution. And the thought here was to avoid the excessive and unfair loss of property, which would cause instability among the community. So once again, it was for the good of the community, not just for the person.
That was kind of interesting, if he couldn't pay for stealing, he would sell himself.
Yeah.
Oh,
You had to,
Yeah.
you had to make
Yeah.
restitution somehow.
Well, didn't they have that in England at one time called debtor's
Debtor's
prison?
Prison, uh-huh.
You couldn't pay for it, you were put in prison.
That's how a lot.
Sometimes your
lot of people
family, if it was that big of a debt.
Yeah.
So they
According
would
to the
help.
Christmas Carol.
Oh, yeah, but I watch a lot of,
Oh, yeah,
That's how
British
A lot of
TV.
people get out of debtor's prison to get on a boat to come to America.
Right,
or
That's
to
how a lot of-
Australia.
Australia, they
Australia.
sent
Yeah.
to Australia.
right.
Yeah, that was the prison
Criminals went to
colony.
Yes.
Australia,
Yeah.
and debtors come to the United States.
Must have been a tough.
That was
Yeah.
a good
Interesting when
thing.
we went there, how,
Oh, yeah?
how all that worked out.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hmm.
So if anybody grazes their livestock in a field or vineyard, lets them stray, and they graze in someone else's field, the offender must make restitution from the best of their own field or vineyard. So that makes sense. Now,
But they didn't have vineyards there yet.
well, I'm sure they did.
Yes, they
Couldn't
did.
drink the water.
You had to have the wine to purify
But they were
the wine.
wandering. When would they have time to plant
That's a good
grapes?
point.
They probably stayed
Maybe
in
they're
one
looking
spot all the
forward.
time.
Okay,
Looking forward.
Maybe the vineyards was over there from the people who'd been there
Right.
before.
The Canaanites could be,
Canaanites,
Probably.
guys, and
probably.
Okay, that makes, okay.
Okay.
Like, wait a minute.
Then if a fire breaks out, you gotta make restitution. This is an interesting one. If anyone gives a neighbor silver or goods for safekeeping and they are stolen from the neighbor's house, the thief, if caught, must pay back double. So we've got the restitution. But if the thief is not found, the owner of the house must appear before the judges, and they must determine whether the owner of the house had laid hands on the other person's property. So if if a thief can't be found, maybe there was no thief.
Oh, and he stole his own to,
Right, he
He
stole his
stole-
friend's stuff.
oh,
claimed the thief.
that's what that
So
meant.
he
And
could
then
keep it.
claimed the thief did it. You
So
know,
these judges were the ones that Moses had set up through
Mhm.
Jethro?
Yep. Yep. I totally forgot about that until you mentioned judges. Yeah, I kept on reading through judges. Yeah, sure, judges.
No, there were no judges in those other chapters.
Yeah,
They
you're
were,
absolutely right.
he started them.
So then if a guy would sell himself in, we assumed it was a man, he'd only be a slave for 6 years?
Yes, yep. Because you couldn't keep a Hebrew slave longer than 6 years. If anybody gives us a donkey, an ox, a sheep, or any other animal to their neighbor for safekeeping, and it dies or is injured, or is taken away while no one is looking, the issue between them will be settled by taking of an oath before the Lord, that the neighbor did not lay hands on the other person's property, and the owner is to accept this. So here the thought is that no one's going to lie to God. And you're hoping that it's true.
Yeah, this
Suppose
is,
the judge ran for the judgeship and won the election? or
No, they were
how-
appointed.
How do you suppose you got to be the judge?
Moses
Well,
must have
Moses
told
Yeah, Moses had
them.
to select.
But
the
God
judges.
would have had to tell Moses, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, Moses had to select the
Because when he
judges.
went back up the hill later, I noticed he had more people with him besides him and Aaron. He had 2 more guys. Yeah.
I
And then-
didn't know who they were either.
I didn't either.
Oh, I didn't
know-
bother to look that up.
Well, there was the 2 guys who got in trouble later for making sacrificial fire and God struck them down.
Ah.
Oh, is that the guys?
Mhm.
They,
I think I do remember, I think we talked about that earlier, a couple
but,
classes
okay, that must
earlier.
happen ahead of later.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Maybe
'Cause
God.
I think those 2 guys appeared earlier in Exodus, and they're gonna appear again, so we'll look for that.
These chapters almost remind me of Leviticus in a small scale.
Pretty close. Pretty close.
That should be a snooze.
So more restitution, and then we get into something that's gonna seem pretty disturbing to us. Social responsibility, verses 16 and 17. So Here, if the virgin is not pledged to be married, then she's still property of her father. That's what it comes down to,
But he has to pay him.
right?
What do you think a bride price would be? It's kinda like a dowry?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
That's probably where that dowry thing came from.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, nowadays it'd be 1895, Earl Shive. Paint jobs.
Okay, so it says a gift usually substantially given by the prospective groom to the bride's parents as a payment for her. The custom was still followed today in parts of the Middle East.
A cow and 3 goats or 10
Yeah, it
or
doesn't
10
say how
camels
much,
or-
it just-
Or 10 camels, depending on how beautiful she was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, sorcery's next.
And the thing, one of the commentaries I read says, the penalty would be stricter if the virgin was engaged,
Ooh.
because that would have a bigger impact on the community, because someone else's wife was stolen. So before she's engaged, she's just the father's daughter. After she's engaged, she's somebody's wife. So once again, we've got the exchange of property, they're not worried about the virgin at all.
It's probably why it was so bad when Mary was pregnant as a virgin.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yep, because that was a huge scandal, and
Well, nobody
she-
would have believed she was a virgin because she's
Right.
pregnant.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And she was
She
engaged
can't
to
be
Joseph.
a virgin,
Right.
according to what they all.
We
Right.
saw that thing on PBS or one of the religious channels about that. And
Well, that was the new show that's coming out.
yeah, I don't know when that starts.
Yeah, there's a new series coming out, The Chosen. I think it's called The Chosen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's really good. Really,
This
really
one
good.
Christian director wants to have a couple-year series about the life of Jesus. Now, the kind of sketchy part about this is he's going to elaborate on some of the gospel stories. So they all can't be tied to scripture, but it looks pretty interesting.
Could
So,
they have come from maybe some of those other books?
it's possible.
Yeah, 'cause
Well,
there's
it's
a lot of
possible.
those books floating around.
He started this company all on people donating.
Right, like
They-
crowdsource.
Yeah, and they would you buy shares into the
Yeah.
company. So,
He raised something like $4 million in
Yeah.
a couple months, which is unheard of for a Christian program.
yeah.
But anyway, keep an eye out for The Chosen.
It came up on my Facebook.
Do you remember
That's
his
how
name?
you keep going,
Okay.
I'll look it up.
So in verse 18, why shouldn't we allow a sorceress to live? What's the big deal? What do you guys think the big deal is
Well,
about
because they go
sorcery?
against God.
Yeah, and
How?
Black magic.
that's curse,
Devil.
that's supposed to be
They're-
from Satan.
Yeah, they're hooked to Satan. It's
They're
like
putting another
witchcraft,
god,
maybe?
Satan, in front of God.
Kind of like witchcraft.
Yep, exactly. Sorcery,
Sorcery,
witchcraft.
Or could it be somebody that's mentally deranged?
Extreme
That kind of
cold.
sounds like the
Sometimes.
witch hunts later on.
Could be. Yep.
I mean, you get mad at somebody and you say, oh, she's a sorceress.
Yeah, that was dirty.
Right.
That was pretty awful. 19, no explanation needed there.
You'd think that was a modern day thing.
What's that?
Relationships with an animal.
Oh,
Must have been way back when they were
must have
glued
been
to
way
them, too.
back when.
I have trouble imagining that. I just can't.
You,
Kind of grosses you out. doesn't it?
Yeah.
it should.
Yeah.
It really should. But I remember when we lived in Arlington Heights, there was this guy who worked in Lincoln Park Zoo.
Oh my
He got
God.
he got
Oh,
arrested
yeah.
for twice
Yeah.
having sex with a cow.
Mm-hmm.
Two times.
But you couldn't be in your right mind. I
I
mean,
wouldn't think so.
something has got to be
I-
so
I
off.
think if I was a guy, I wouldn't want to have sex with anything with perpetual diarrhea like a cow.
Thank you.
The comment from the agricultural girl, thank you.
It helps to do ministry in a farm community.
I'll tell you what,
There's
I
all
will,
kinds of stuff.
I will like it and then maybe share it on Facebook with everybody. The Chosen. It shows.
Oh, really?
Crazy. And in verse 20, same thing.
Yeah.
If you're worshiping any other god other than the
That's
Lord,
the old stories I have with
you've
you.
got no reason to live.
I suppose they were
They're worshiping a small g god.
meeting here.
And then even some of the tribes sacrifice their children.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Yep. The
There's still places that do that.
Moabites and, I'm trying to remember what god they worship. Balaam, I think it was.
Oh, Baal?
Or Baal, yes.
Right, it's not just
Yeah,
Baal, so-
it's, yeah, that was
It just drives me
one of their
crazy.
practices. Verse 21. God's just saying, you guys were oppressed, remember what it was like.
Right.
Don't treat other people like you were treated.
Kind of like a whole can of worms now with our,
Oh, boy.
Uh-huh.
I was gonna say, let's just ignore that
yeah, we'll
first.
move on.
Okay, I shared it on Facebook.
Okay.
So if you
Okay.
go on Facebook, it's The Chosen it's called. They're filming, so,
Okay.
What station would that be on?
you know.
I think it's I think it's a
We
special
watched it on
station.
YouTube.
Oh.
Yeah.
The
I
first
think you have
couple
to buy
are
a
free.
subscription.
Oh.
But we couldn't find where to buy the subscription
Yeah.
yet, so.
You might be able to watch, because YouTube has a YouTube channel, so you might be able to get it.
Yeah, we're
through
still
that.
fussing with it, but it was really good.
Yeah.
Because Jesus was normal looking.
Right. He wasn't, wasn't Jeffrey Hunter or anybody else.
No,
So-
he was just a
Just a
normal
regular
guy.
guy.
Just a
Just a regular
regular-looking
guy.
guy,
He was at getting Peter to come in, and he was in his little boat, just like you
Yeah.
talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good.
Anyway, okay, back to
yeah.
the story. And we know the fate of widows.
Yeah.
So God wants to make sure that widows are taken care of. And he is serious. He says, if you take advantage of a widow, then I'm going to make sure that you're dead, so your wives and children will be widows and orphans. That's pretty serious. But God is saying, I need to make these penalties serious so you don't do it.
yeah, 'cause if them naughty guys wanna have sex with animals, they won't think twice about raping a widow, I'm sure.
Right.
Ugh. Crazy. Just disgusting. Then we get to the cloak thing. Why do you think the cloak had to be returned by sunset?
Yeah, never.
It's cold at
It's
night.
cold at night.
Because they would
Oh.
need, they
It's
wouldn't
cold
have
at
enough
night,
money to
that's
buy
why.
another coat.
What else would
Right.
you sleep in?
Another universal
What else would he sleep in, it says?
Well, all the
utility
above.
garment, yeah.
All the above. The commentary said that cloaks were so expensive, most people only had one. So we have, we look at our closet, we look at all the coats we have. They had one, and it was everything. It was their blanket, it was their coat, it was their knapsack. They would wrap stuff up and carry stuff in it. It was their bedding, it was their pillow, it was everything they had in the world. So that's why it was important.
So, besides they were carrying everything with them.
Yeah,